Welcome to today's episode. I am excited to have I don't know if I could call you this, Gary, but are you a goal master? Is that like a good word to use for you? Are you a goal master?
I've been called a number of things, but that is totally cool, man.
I'm excited. I'll call you the goal master then. To have the goal master, to give you an idea of Gary, I found his program and I saw a ton of reviews about how amazing this 100-day challenge was. And I've read a lot about, in the one thing, the book, they talk about how if you really want to set a habit or anything, it usually takes about 100 days to get it in there. And I was excited to find your program, and I will be starting it this year and going through the entire program, and wanted to have you on once I found out that it was a possibility. So I'm excited to have you on the podcast and to talk about goals, because I think that goals are a huge thing that can be misunderstood. And then sometimes people are extremely scared to set goals because, they're afraid of failing at them. But before we dive into all of that, I'm just curious with you, personally, what's your history with goals before actually starting the 100-day challenge?
I've always been an entrepreneur. So from that standpoint, it's probably started out for me at about 10, 12 years old.
Hmm.
Folks didn't have a lot of money, so anything we wanted, we pretty much had to get out there and hustle for it.
Right,
So, I've been mowing lawns, cleaning pools, picking up dog poop, and everything else
right.
since an early age. And from there, I think once you start doing that, you just it becomes part of your DNA.
Hmm.
So I migrated from that. Goodness gracious, then I wound up having kind of a newspaper route, still with all of the cleaning of the pools and the mowing of the lawn. But I wound up having, I think by the time I graduated high school, 12, 14 friends actually working for me. So I was taking a
Wow.
cut of all their action. And then once I went to school, I played ball in upstate New York at Syracuse,
Hmm.
and with the intent I was going to play pro ball, but I just got banged up like a lot of guys do, and so injury took me out pretty early.
Hmm.
And I started the first long distance phone business for the collegiate market.
Hmm.
Everybody happened to be focused in on commercial or residential, and I just happened to be a college kid and wrote a paper on it and decided, you know what, this is a pretty good way to go. So
Hmm.
I did that. Really ran that pretty hard, and that's where really the genesis of the 100-day challenge comes in, because I'm going to talk to you about what I call a sprint offense, which is
Hmm.
a really important piece, but that's the true genesis of it. And how that whole thing grew. But 5.5 years into it, I sold it to MCI, cashed out, and was found myself with a nice pocket full of change at an early age. And since then, it's been a number of different entrepreneurial adventures, and I've got my fingers and toes and into a lot of different pies. But it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So what was the idea for the 100-day challenge? What's the history behind it? And then do you feel like what do you feel is different about your program? Because obviously there's a lot of different goal setting programs. What do you feel is different that you kind of bring to the table?
Well, first off, let's talk about really just that. I'll point right to that and then kind of go right to a central starting point.
Hmm.
What I do, and I think this is really important. If you were going to go to, let's just say, a plastic surgeon,
Hmm.
and you wanted to get rhinoplasty, a
Hmm.
nose job, you would probably want to go to somebody who specializes in it. In the
Yeah,
same way that if you wanted to get your eyes worked on or laser work, you would want to go to a LASIK specialist.
absolutely.
Or the same thing, if somebody was going to do a breast augmentation, you're a gal, you would want to go to somebody who just specialized in that thing. Well, there's a lot of people throughout the world who talk about goals, write about it, and so on and so forth. And I got it and understand that.
Hmm.
But as far as I know, there's not a person on this planet who has made it a discipline, who has focused 100% of their time and attention and built their practice on it.
Hmm.
And that's what I've done for the last 22 years. So if there's anything you need to know on this subject matter, just you could pull up your car and park it right here. We'll get you. We'll fill everybody's tank.
Okay.
But coming back to the genesis of the 100-day challenge I mentioned twice. Here's the deal. When I was in school, I didn't have much time to actually go out and build a business. I was a student,
Hmm.
and I had Fridays off and Saturdays. And I just decided that I was gonna use it as a sprint, and
Hmm.
I just had limited time, so I just said to myself, how do I get as much done as I possibly can?
Hmm.
So I challenged myself, and it was like, okay, I made 20 phone calls, or should I say 20, banged on 20 dorms today. How do I do 25 the next day? And how do I
Hmm.
continue to increase it by one or two or increments of five? And what I found happening is I would wind up speaking to people at different companies and finding out what would an average salesperson would do
Hmm.
over the course of a week or month. And literally within just probably in the first 2 months, I realized that I was making more money in one day than most of your seasoned representatives were doing over the course of a month.
Hmm.
And I figured, if I could continue to refine this and just play with this and amp this up, there's got to be a way with which I could continue to increase my income.
Yeah.
So the genesis was really, like a lot of things in life, was born out of necessity,
Hmm.
and from there I've really kind of played off of that to the extent that we've got some pretty good ways of showing people how to get big things done fast.
Yeah. I saw something about getting 10 years worth of results in 100 days. And it's interesting because Peter Thiel, I don't know if you've ever heard his quote, but he says, what's your big 10-year goal? And once you say it, he says, well, how can you get it done in 6 months? And so
Yeah.
to that sounds crazy. And, it sounds like a really bold thing to say. Um, but can somebody really make that type of huge performance gain in such a short period of time, 100 days for your program?
Let me ask you this: have you ever seen P90X?
I have. Yep.
Okay, you've probably seen some of the videos.
Hmm.
So let's just give some evidence. Let me give you two examples. Number one, if you go to their website and look at their product and you examine it and see the before and after videos, you will clearly see people that have gone from fat and flabby to firm and fantastic and look
Hmm.
20 years younger in 90 days. It is possible to have a complete body transformation in that period of time.
Hmm.
Next, a few years back, there was a show that was on television, and it was Extreme Home Makeover.
Hmm.
And this is a brilliant example because what most people see when they look at a home, I built a pretty significant home in Florida. It
Hmm.
took us 16 months in order to build the house.
Hmm.
Now, some will take longer, but most of your houses will take probably 9 to 10 months in order to get built.
Hmm.
These guys were building a 3,000 square foot move-in ready house in
Yeah.
7 days. So this is, I mean, how did they do that? Well, it was all about a lot of the strategies with which we'll be talking about. So the answer to your question is an affirmative yes, you really can.
Yeah.
Just
So,
most people don't know how.
yeah, do you feel like it's just that more than anything else, people just quote unquote try to be realistic and they put the restrictions on themselves?
Yeah, hey, listen, we're all brought up and we've been indoctrinated by a system that has a certain way of thinking. It's kind of like the ABCs, one, two, three. If you take
Hmm.
one step at a time,
Hmm.
if you're going to work for a company, you get a cost of living allowance increase in income. People are
Hmm.
conditioned to get a 3, 4, maybe 5 or 7% increase or bump.
Hmm.
And people have a tendency since they're young to be programmed to think small and
Yeah.
to think that all growth is incremental,
Hmm.
and it's ridiculous. It's a flawed belief. To make it very, very simple, most people play what I call basically addition and subtraction. My belief is what you want to do is you want to play a game of multiplication and division. And until you learn that, until you change that mentality and understand what that whole thing is all about, that you can grow in multiples, you will forever settle for table scraps. And unfortunately, that's the situation that the majority of people find themselves in.
Hmm. Yeah, that rings so true for me, leaving working for companies in a couple years ago and just realizing that once you get outside of the box, it seems like the world the kind of what we're raised to believe is completely false. Is that kind of what you're going at, where it's like what we've been raised and programmed to think is false for some reason, and once you get outside the box and look at it, you're like, man, I can't believe I was in that box for so long in that way of thinking.
Well, the universal principle that's not discussed much is just simply called the law of exposure.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, most people are exposed to small thinking, small ideas,
Hmm.
incremental growth. They're exposed to what they saw mom and dad do.
Hmm.
They're exposed to what their friends are doing, and so forth. But until you wind up getting exposed to bigger ideas, to bigger thinking, to different ways to execute, to big dreams, and someone can provide you with evidence that this is possible, you will. It's almost like a sentence. You'll be doomed to think small and again settle for far less than you could possibly have during the course of your lifetime.
I can't agree with you more. I think it's the perfect example of why they say that your top five people that you hang out with are who you're going to be the most. And so, whenever you think around, you're around small thinkers and people who are overweight, you're probably going to be overweight and a small thinker. But if you're around five millionaires, there's a pretty good chance you're going to start to push yourself to do things you never thought possible. So, I get a question for you. Why do you feel, as the goal master, if we're in the goal dojo, why do you feel that most people fail at their goals? Do you think that it's the setting of it? Do you think it's the planning of it? Do you think it's the execution? All of the above? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, make it real simple. I mean, look at your body. I mean, I basically, I use the three words: the what, the why, and the how. But it
Mm-hmm.
really comes down to is the head, the heart, and the hands.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that all about? Well, I've always heard people say that you've got to have a big why. I will not discount that in any way, shape, or form. However, and this is the big however, people need to understand something, though, okay? That if you know why you want something, that
Mm-hmm.
is the heart, if you will. That's the
Mm-hmm.
motivational factor. But you don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
And I always hear people say you'll figure out a way. No, that's not true. It's really not. That most people have a lousy game.
Mm-hmm.
Most people think small. Most people, unfortunately, are implementing very ineffective strategies. It's just kind of the way that it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But even put that whole thing aside, most people they don't even know what they want, and that's where the problem starts.
Yeah.
So, bottom line is until you decide on what it is that you want
Yeah.
and you can clarify it with certainty, everything else is a joke. So, give you an example. Whenever I give a presentation, I have a tendency of putting a piece of paper in front of the projector,
Mm-hmm.
and I give people kind of a conversation about focus. And they said, I want you to look at the screen. It's pure black. And I said, this is the situation that most people find themselves when they wake up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's a black screen. There's nothing there. Or maybe it's got a gray.
Yeah.
Then I take it off, and I intentionally beforehand the monitor is fuzzy, so I've kind of turned it about 20% to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, then there's going to be that small percentage, or should I say, get a decent amount of people who have a vague understanding of what they want, but they're kind of going through life with this, and it's like driving through a fog. I said you may get to a place a little quicker, but still, it's not going to be clean or efficient. And then I just turn it 10 degrees, 15 degrees back to so it's centered. And I said, you've got perfect vision at this point in time. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, bottom line is, I said, these are the three conditions or positions that people find themselves in. Until you know exactly what it is you want, all the other stuff really doesn't mean all that much.
Mm-hmm.
So you need all working together. You need the head, the heart, and the hand. You need the what, the why, and the how. Whatever way you want to say it, it's all appropriate, and they have to be working in tandem. Having one with a deficit of the other, it just makes these old sayings that you hear people talk about, quite frankly, useless. They really are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm real big on New Year's resolutions. I have a group coaching program, and we just did a 2 hour long group of all of us together, planned our goals, went over every single aspect of them because I want to make sure that we go into 2017 strong. And this episode is going to come out right towards the beginning of 2017. So for everybody else that's out there, um, whether they're considering making New Year's resolutions or they have maybe, if they're one of the 3% of people in the world, they might have written them down actually. Why do you think that people at the very beginning of the year should take their goals and their resolutions more seriously?
I the best thing to do again is just look at your body and ask yourself what kind of condition would you be in without your heart,
Hmm.
without your heart beating, and the answer is you'd be roadkill, toast, history. I mean, use
Hmm.
whatever term you want to use. The same thing is true. I mean, unless you know what it is you want. Now, I'm a big believer, and I built the 100-day challenge around a very very powerful concept: how to get more done in 100 days than most people do over the course of 10 years. How
Hmm.
do you do it in the first 100 days of the year?
Hmm.
And and listen, this has been a metric that's been in place, if you will, for every president since FDR went in, I think in 1933.
Hmm.
And it just you want to see somebody with an unprecedented track record. I mean, look what this guy did during that first
Hmm.
100 days. We need to be able to have that kind of level of clarity and understanding as to how well we're going to execute from the first day of the year.
Hmm.
Now, in this case, it's going to be a Sunday, but
Hmm.
it's really important from that standpoint. And then and that's really kind of where I want to concentrate on.
It's interesting. I love it because I think that most people will go into the year. They'll kind of have a very vague idea, like you said just a minute ago, of I think I want to be healthier, but they don't have any specific numbers put down on a piece of paper. They don't have the body printed out of the person that they want and put up on the wall so they see it every single day. And um, so there's so many benefits, I think personally, to having goals and having New Year's resolutions and starting it off the right way. But if you look back to 2016 now, what can people pull from their 2016 goals or resolutions, everything that they had? What can they learn from that they could pull into 2017 to, if they're going to do this 100-day challenge or if they're just going to set their goals or whatever it might be? What can they learn from last year and last year's resolutions that they could bring into this year?
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's a different form of 3 R's. I basically just wrote something about this. It's really 3 R's of reflect, review, and respond.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to reflect on last year's performance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the best way to go about doing it? You always want to focus in on the affirmative. You want to focus on what's right, what's good, what's positive, and what was accomplished. So find your wins. Then you need to sit back and you need to analyze them. What did you do right? Why did they take place? You want to
Mm-hmm.
get as much information as possible, and you want to extract that DNA so you can apply it moving forward. Now, the other thing you need to do is by extracting that information, that provides you, and this everyone should listen real closely what I'm about to say, and maybe I'll set it up a little differently and come back. If you let's just say that you were going to go to Vegas
Mm-hmm.
and you knew that you were going to hit 21 on the next hand, how much money would you put on the table? I'd venture to say everything you got in your pocket.
Everything. Yeah.
You got it. Because you're operating from what I would call a principle of certainty. And I want
Mm-hmm.
people to stop and understand this because it seems so simple, but it's mind-boggling. When you operate from a principle of certainty and you know certain strategies and facts and ways with which you executed provided you with a consistent result again and again and again in 2016, I would suggest very strongly that you double down on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's the thing that's going to be very helpful. So what you're looking for when you're extracting that information is what are the areas with which you can have profound levels of self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you need to do the same thing on the opposite side as well. What are the failures? What were the disappointments? And what can you extract? So you want to basically kind of do a reflection on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the review process is the same thing. It's an after action review. Ask yourself the key questions associated with it, and then as the new year approaches, respond accordingly. So it's a very simple process, but that's really what you need to be able to do.
Hmm. Okay. And then let me ask you this question with that being said, because I know a lot of people, especially people that I know listen to this, they are getting into goal setting or they automatically do it every single year. So it's kind of all across the board. So I know that there's a lot of people who would benefit from goal setting or getting into anything like this and getting some type of guidance. But do you feel like there's anybody who would benefit, I guess, the least if from participating in the 100-day challenge?
Well, my approach is not soft or weak or anything. And when you buy a program from me or invest in it, you should be prepared to kind of be prepared to go to work and get it straight.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say this: thumb suckers, crybabies, excuse makers, anybody along that way, I will steamroll you. This program will run you over, eat you up, and leave you discarded on the side of the road. The fact is, for somebody to have the balls to make some type of a statement and say you can get 100 days worth of 10 years of the results in 100 days,
Hmm.
that's pretty ballsy.
Yeah.
So I assure you that the execution skills and the attitude that it takes in order to get that done is not soft, is not a prima donna, and is not going to be one that's prone to excuses. So this is one where you need to bring big boy pants on in order to show up and play.
I love that so much because I that is 100% like the background, the foundation of everything that my podcast is on is it's short, no BS podcast. And I'm not the type of person that's like, hey, it's I kind of hate the word motivation, which is funny because my podcast is MWF motivation. I like the word drive more because people kind of think like, oh, the motivational fairy didn't come sprinkle motivational dust on me today, and I just can't find it. And I kind of hate that word of motivation. I like the word drive because you can always tell someone that's driven and someone who's when you meet them, you can see it in their eyes. And I'm not the type of person that's like, hey, give me a high five. You can do it. I believe in you. It's more of like, let's figure out what the problem is. Let's get to the problem. Let's make some action steps. So I love that. I love that crybabies and thumb suckers are not going to do well in it because I don't think there's a whole lot of them that listen to this podcast. So let me ask you this then. Now that we're at the end of the interview, what's one actionable idea that people can use right now after this podcast to get immediate results from?
Okay, let's look at it this way. Turn on any sporting event: football, baseball, basketball. Right now we're in the football season,
Hmm.
okay? But this applies any time of the year to anything. Let's just pick Giants and Cowboys.
Okay.
There's only when it comes to strategy, there's only two types of strategy. Again, most of us have never been exposed and never really understand this. There's offense and there's defense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's an old saying which we've all heard and coaches still continue to repeat today, and they're wrong. And I always say basically that the best thing you can do is deploy a strong defense. Best,
Mm-hmm.
strong. It's just that, and it's nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
The single best thing that you can do from day one and do it every single day of your life is deploy a strong, relentless offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's all about. And what is offense? Offense is discipline. Offense is focus. Offense is execution. Offense, quite frankly, is showing up on time, fully prepared, ready to execute, to honor your commitments, to exercise integrity, and all of that type of stuff. The only reason why you will find yourself playing defense is because you started off weak and soft. You play defense and you have to you have to apologize when you show up late, when you're unprepared,
Mm-hmm.
when you engage in procrastination or self-doubt or indecision or any of these things. You find yourself in a position where you don't meet quota, and then you come up with some lame bullshit reason as to why you
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And what people have a tendency of doing, because of their inability to deploy a strong offense, they spend their lives playing defense and they waste time. So as it relates to the whole product premise, if you will, of the 100-day challenge, to how to get 110 years worth of results in 100 days,
Mm-hmm.
here's the best way to kind of put this, wrap your mind around it. Just imagine your life where procrastination never doesn't exist anymore, where excuse making is history,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Where the only thing that you demonstrate on a day-to-day basis is forward progress, is
Mm-hmm.
movement. Because when it comes to action, we all have to understand something. It's very much like the North and South Pole. They're kind of polar opposites of each other, but there's a gravitational pull.
Mm-hmm.
Your goals are either or really pulling you towards north, your true north, as to where you want to go, or they're taking you south, away from them. Behavior never lies. So what you have to realize on a day-to-day basis, no matter how small the action is, everything is leading you north in the direction of your hopes and dreams and goals and desires, or it's taking you south away from them. My advice, deploy a strong, relentless offense. And that's what the 100-day challenge is all about. It is truly just a true force multiplier, 100 unique strategies, all focused on aggressively moving the ball down the field.
I love that. That's awesome. So for anybody who is interested, what is the investment in it, and then what type of guarantee do you offer with the system?
Yeah, it's no problem. And let me preface that by saying this. At this point right now, I've been doing this for 7 years. This program rolled it out. We just
Mm-hmm.
passed 500,000 participants.
Wow.
So we're going to hit critical mass this
Wow.
year. We'll
That's
probably
amazing.
go into yeah, we'll hit the multiples of millions probably in 2017. I've scaled it for the masses, so this is the greatest value you'll receive in your life. It's $177, so less than $2 a day, and give it a shot. You got 30 days. If for any reason it doesn't float your boat and deliver on its promises, just let us know. We'll take care of it.
I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, and I am excited that somebody canceled, so I was able, or somebody had to reschedule, so I was able to get this spot in before the new year starts. And I appreciate your time. I'm excited to honestly go through it, because anything that's a challenge I love, and so when you say a 100-day challenge, I'm excited to push myself even more the next 100 days. So I appreciate your time, and I'm excited to go through it with you.
Take care, my man. Listen, I'm glad to be on. You're doing some great work, so thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.